Oh, hey there. Welcome to the Ope-Eh Three-Way Pro Wrestling Podcast. This our episode 28, our Wednesday, your Thursday, or whenever that happens to be. I'm Brandon, joined as always by my good buds, Pierce and Donnie. Fellas, how we doing today?
Trying to stay warm, we're doing. And because of the week I've had, we're also going to do this.
Little,
That is
hear a
Yingling.
little. Oh, it's a Yingling. Oh, okay. You're getting fancy tonight.
That's not something I have ever. It came home with me from my Rumble trip. Donnie, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. And by okay, I mean I'm glad to be talking on this show about wrestling with you guys rather than be talking about other stuff with other people that I don't want to talk to. So, yeah, I can't complain with where I am right
So you don't want to talk about hockey then, is what I'm hearing.
now. Call me back tomorrow. What's the old like the Jays, the infamous one with stupid Rougned Odor and the Toronto Blue Jays? I'd rather get punched in May than knocked out in October. So
Sure.
don't count
That's fair.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Big games tomorrow night. Go Canada.
Yeah, good luck in the TD. Good luck in the TD
Do you
there,
want to
boss.
talk about baseball? Because your baseball team has probably pissed you off quite a bit too.
Oh, they sure have. It is like full blown shit fest for the Toronto Blue Jays, but yeah, I mean, the guys in charge are terrible, so it doesn't surprise me.
That's every sports team ever.
At least the Raptors never disappoint, am I right? I mean,
my expectations for
right?
Raptors are low, so technically you're correct.
Hey, they retired Mr. Vince Carter's number.
Hey.
So shout out Vince Carter. That dude fucking
Well deserved.
Oh. Some Toronto fans have differentiating opinions on the way Vince Carter left. So
yeah, but he could still dunk really good, and it was awesome.
He was a good dunker. Matter of fact, when you see him at his best dunks, you could say,
"Oh, yes, I love that."
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So
can't argue with that.
Montez knows.
But as always, follow us on socials. X. Yeah. It's the beer. I'm already drunk.
It's the Yingling talking.
He's cut off.
All right, you know what, Pierce? Solidarity.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Donnie, what episode are we up to on YouTube?
I just uploaded episode 17, so I put up 3 more today.
Magnificent.
We'll get some face cam going. It's going to be a slow burn, but we'll get there. But Donnie, would you mind hitting me with it?
What a generous guy.
There we go, and we finally actually hit that perfectly on time this time. So we're getting better, folks.
Hell yeah.
But we're going to go back to 2000. This normally isn't something that I would talk about, is just random title changes. But we're going to bring up a random title change from ECW in the year 2000, 1 year before they closed. Just Incredible and Lance Storm. Don't quote me on this, but I believe their team name was the Impact Players. Defeated Tommy Dreamer and Masato Tanaka for the ECW tag titles at a TV taping in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Hey, missed that one. But
I was 3, so I would not have been there.
That's a shame.
I was 10, and I grew up in a pretty staunchly Christian household, so I likely also would not have been there.
Also a shame.
But we'll jump ahead to 2006. WWE No Way Out takes place. 3 matches to talk about here. Rey Mysterio lost to Randy Orton. He rolled him up and had a hand on the ropes. In losing, he lost his world title opportunity. He won at the Royal Rumble to Randy.
Oof.
If you remember this
Wouldn't call that a shame.
If you remember this feud, it was not a fun feud to watch. Not that it was a bad feud. Obviously, these two have great matches together for the most part. But what Randy was being told to talk about in his promos was really, really dark. I remember one quote very, very vividly. I remember this because I saw it, quote unquote, live when SmackDown was live. They were talking about Eddie, and Ray was saying Eddie's looking down at him. Randy goes, "Oh no, Eddie's not looking down at you from heaven. Eddie's in hell." And the man just died, 3 months beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole Rey Mysterio winning the world title thing was very hand-fisted to that, and it just, leaves a bad taste in your
So
mouth.
some people got to get that cheap heat. I think as a whole, WWE has moved away from that, but that's what we have MJF
Yeah.
for. Cheap
Well,
heat.
and too, you got to consider too. They got to try to build Randy outside of Evolution too, and they're probably starting to run out of ideas. So
Well,
naturally,
the original plan for WrestleMania 22 was Randy beating Batista for the World Heavyweight title, which at that point would have been fine.
Sure.
Randy as a heel is much better as Randy as a face, especially at this point in time. So,
Oh yeah.
I would have been fine with it. Obviously, Batista gets hurt, and then Eddie passing away. Which I don't know if you guys know this, but do you know Eddie Guerrero's planned match for WrestleMania 22?
Shawn Michaels.
Yep, in a first time ever feud and match.
Which would have been fucking stellar.
Yeah, that would have been a great match.
Would have been. And the feud probably would have been fantastic. Eddie would have turned heel again. It would have been Eddie versus Shawn. It would have been insane.
I mean, hell, I would have settled for a heel Shawn and a face Eddie too. Either way,
I think
would have been interesting.
At that point, Shawn will probably never turn heel again, and then Eddie as a heel, he just slot right in perfectly.
Oh right, yeah, no, he was doing a pretty big heel run after he turned on Ray, but then was becoming face again shortly before he passed, unfortunately.
Yep,
and now
he was actually planning to win the World Heavyweight title 2 days after he passed. There's a lot that would have happened in between then, but but we'll continue on in No Way Out. Name redacted.
Redacted
Defeats Booker T for the U.S. title.
They did actually have a pretty solid feud for the U.S. title, from what I recall.
Series where Booker T was hurt at the end of it, so Randy Orton came in and won the title for Booker T. It is a weird time.
I mean, Redacted had a lot of good match series with people because Redacted was a damn good wrestler. But
yeah, he is one of the greatest just pure in-ring wrestlers of all time, but he is a piece of shit.
Yep.
That is true.
And we move on
to the main event in my opinion, one of the most underrated matches in WWE history. Kurt Angle defeats The Undertaker in a 30-minute banger to retain the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, that match was great.
Angle and Taker, man, they had some great matches. They had a great one on SmackDown as well. I mean, when you consider like Taker in that phase of his career, as he was starting to put more, I guess, MMA for better or for worse into his repertoire, and then you have Kurt Angle, obviously the wrestling god. No one better on the planet. In my mind, that man should have had the 1,000-day reign well before Roman did, and I will beat that drum until the fucking hide falls off.
It's not a wrong opinion. There's a reason that he won every single title in TNA at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, Kurt's doing a show up here in Toronto in a couple weeks, which talked to Marta about going to. So you might get to see your Olympic hero once again.
That'd be nice.
Kurt Angle is just there. He's the most naturally gifted professional wrestler of all time.
Yep.
We'll jump ahead 1 year to 2007. The start of the Battle of the Billionaires begins. Vince McMahon's chosen champion for the match, Umaga, defeats Jeff Hardy for the Intercontinental title.
Umaga.
Umaga is also one of the most underrated professional wrestlers of all time, in my humble opinion. He was awesome. Also on the card, Melina defeats Mickie James for the women's title.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty steady back and forth for its time. Yeah.
And then it's 2012 Elimination Chamber. Hey, Brandon, you know where this pay-per-view took place from?
I believe that was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
Yes, sir.
and I believe I know that because I was there.
Yes,
I
sir.
was maybe, oh god, I probably was about 8 rows back from the front.
Nice.
That was my first ever pay-per-view at the time.
And,
I remember
First ever
fondly.
WWE event, you said?
No, not my first event. My first event was the first NXT taping.
Oh, right.
So-
Right. Well, if you count that a WWE event with where it was on its debut, sure.
Right. Well, there was a SmackDown taping and a main event taping too, but
Okay.
so there was a few different things involved in it, but that was my first ever pay-per-view.
Nice.
So, well, not a bad first, I'd say.
no, not at all. Specifically
got to
for
watch,
one of the two chamber matches that we'll get to. We'll start with the first one. WWE Champion CM Punk retains against The Miz, Kofi Kingston, Dolph Ziggler, R-Truth. Really star-studded lineup for people to beat
Yeah.
CM Punk for the WWE title. And finally, Chris Jericho. Now, in this match, Jericho was never technically eliminated.
No, he was not.
He was thrown out of the cage and was deemed medically unfit to compete, and that kind of gave him his opportunity for a rematch, which led to their WrestleMania program.
So at least they reached a logical conclusion then.
Right.
I mean, think of all the guys who never lost the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, like
They're never going to get their day.
Maven.
Except for the Big Show.
Scotty 2 Hotty, Akira Tozawa, Curtis Axel, I'm
Axel.
pretty sure.
Yep.
They're going to be able to have their own chamber match soon.
No. Oh, yeah. But let's talk about the other chamber for the World Heavyweight Championship. Daniel Bryan retains against Wade Barrett, Cody Rhodes, Big Show, Great Khali. That's actually a star-studded lineup for that one, looking back. Except for one person who became the hero on this night, Santino Marella. The crowd reaction to Santino almost beating Daniel Bryan and just being in the match in general and eliminating Wade Barrett. I believe he also eliminated Cody Rhodes. He was the most over person on the night. Brandon, you were there. Would you agree with that statement?
As somebody who absolutely did not want to see Santino make it past the first chamber pod opening, I got pretty hot for Santino and the Cobra there in my seat there, boys. I remember when he got literally like a hair's swipe away from the World Heavyweight Championship. He was the last man in there with Bryan, and I popped big. I was yelling at the screen, looking up, seeing Santino's face as he couldn't believe he didn't pull off one of the biggest upsets leading into WrestleMania. And of course, Daniel Bryan with the win, leading into what I believe was his match with old Shamo there.
Yeah.
I think it was leading up to the famous 8 seconds match, was it not?
Well,
18 seconds. But
Oh, sorry, I was off by 10.
Hindsight is 2020 on that because that really was the start of the Yes movement. I would like to be in the timeline where Santino won the title because that would have made sense for him to lose in 18 seconds.
yeah, I agree. Now, knowing that that's the connecting point there, that would have made a lot more sense. Just have Santino pull off a fluke and then Sheamus kill him.
But then, too, I feel like that's kind of leading into a WrestleMania, though, that's kind of a toss away of a title match, no?
I mean,
when you can see it coming.
Toss away.
So was the 18 seconds with Daniel Bryan. But then 2020 for Daniel Bryan, but
sure. But then it's Daniel Bryan, and then there's Santino Marella. Like, do we think Santino Marella could have started a Yes movement or a Cobra coalition or whatever the fuck? I don't know.
He did on this night.
And now he makes cameo appearances on NXT with his daughter. So
go for Santino.
Yeah, he's an authority figure on TNA, which is very, very strange, but they make it work somehow. So can't be mad at it. Especially if he gets to spend time with his daughter, which is nice.
Let's talk about the main event for Elimination Chamber 2012. The worst feud of the year. finally ends when John Cena defeats Kane in an ambulance match. This storyline sucked. It's the Embrace the Hate storyline. All it did was bury Zack Ryder, who had gotten himself over organically, but they had to bury him because Vince didn't like that he got himself over, which makes no fucking sense. Why would you be mad that somebody's making you a shit ton of money? I don't get it.
Woo woo woo.
On a frontier that you've barely explored, which is probably where a lot of that came from. It probably wasn't Vince's idea first to go on the internet and, gain the company traction and chart new ground. But, Vince will Vince, as we say.
And then finally, we're going to give a little happy birthday to the chairman, the perfect 10, Sean Spears.
Good old Canadian boy.
I wanted
He's
to
more like
serve you guys with the chairman part. Did it work?
Nah. I mean, you swerved me with the perfect 10 part a little bit. I'd say he's probably a good solid 7 at this juncture.
Wow.
Hey, he's the perfect 10 in my heart.
I mean, well, in your heart, sure, but I mean, his record seems to indicate otherwise these days.
Happy birthday.
I've never seen a
Sean Spears.
perfect 10.
St. Catharines,
Need a stable
Ontario
out of him.
legend.
Donnie with the soft spot.
Appreciate the Canadian content.
But let's talk about the company where he got the nickname, the chairman. Let's talk about AEW Grand Slam.
Yeah, let's talk about AEW Grand Slam. That was the 50,000 attended pay-per-view turned into whatever how many it was out of the Brisbane Entertainment Center.
Hey, but that funny thing witstanding, this was the third highest gate internationally they've ever had.
The tickets were very expensive.
So it was a success, all things considered.
You could put an asterisk next to that one because when you consider the fact that a lot of these people bought seats at the prices they did, and then right. I mean, there's a reason Tony got booed. Like, in spite of the fact that you got rabid wrestling fans in Australia who get shows once every 3 to 5 years,
with a lot of hometown content in this show too.
Yeah,
Australia's been putting out big time.
Showed up and showed out. This was match-wise a very, very good show.
Yeah, so we'll get right into those. Opening the card, Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega defeated Don Callis family reps Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. Took almost 24 minutes.
Takeshita got pinned, which is surprising to me. The way he got pinned was awesome, though.
It's understandable.
A top rope hidden blade into a one-winged angel. Nobody kicks out of the one-winged angel, as we know, but you want to make it extra so they don't kick out? That's how you do it.
Yeah, it was the exact opposite of what I was expecting. I mean, I was thinking maybe Omega takes the L here, considering you have a native Aussie in Kyle Fletcher and a double champion, a juggernaut in Konosuke Takeshita. But to that end, though, like you said, a hidden blade, one-wing angel, that's all she wrote. It doesn't matter who we are.
That's a death sentence. That's it. I mean, obviously, this match was fucking incredible. You get 4 dudes who are, four of the best in the world.
Very good at professional wrestling.
Yeah, they're very good. They're very good at the wrestling. They
know a thing or two around a ring.
Yep.
Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world, and so is Konosuke Takeshita, and so is fucking Kenny Omega. Kyle Fletcher is like one underneath that, so it's kind of expected that this was going to be incredible. I mean, what more do you want? This leads into 2 huge matches for what pay-per-view Revolution?
So
you got Konosuke versus Kenny 2.
Yeah, so Konosuke has to defend again to be able to defend against Kenny, because originally this match with Kenny was announced a while ago, right?
No, it just got announced.
I thought that it was already predetermined that Takeshita was defending against Omega at Revolution like a few weeks ago.
No, they just announced it that night.
I want to fact check that, but for
But
some
you
reason,
get Takeshita versus Omega for the International Championship, and then you get Ospreay and Fletcher in a steel cage. I mean, this is probably where Ospreay. Well, no, he got his win back in the tournament for the C2. So that one is really a toss-up. I think we'll see what happens. I don't see Takeshita losing anytime soon for the AEW International title, but if they want to add more prestige, not much better than Kenny Omega in AEW.
I just looked at that card
Yeah,
really
get
quickly.
people used to seeing him with gold again.
Didn't realize Big Boom
And it
AJ
just-
was going to be on this card again coming up.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
he announced that himself. I mean, that's probably just going to be on the pre-show.
It
brings
is,
a lot of
but
casual. More people know who Big Boom AJ is than fucking Roman Reigns. So it's for the casual viewer. And his match at what show was it? Is that Full Gear?
yeah.
It did what it needed to do, and it was hot as hell. You know, so more power to them if they want to use Big Boom AJ again.
I cut you off, Brandon, so
Whatever
if you want to add
draws the-
anything else.
No, whatever draws the numbers, brother. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, that would lead into our next match, which probably did not draw as many numbers. And that would be Mercedes Moné once again successfully defending her AEW TBS championship by defeating Harley Cameron in just under 13 minutes.
And it makes me sad.
It makes a lot of people sad.
I will say this about Harley Cameron, though. She is really coming into her own. Her time will come.
She'll beat Mercedes. It's not. It's written in the stars, IMO.
I mean, I am pretty staunchly of the belief, considering this whole belt collector shtick she's got going on, that she'll either challenge for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship or, more likely now, the AEW Women's Championship. Like, I don't know who else she has really to defend the TBS title particularly against.
Chris
And it stands
Statlander
to
again.
reason. Again, but, you know, do we want to put...
Statlander is
how many-
feuding with Megan Bayne now. And
How many
they're having
stratas
their
of dirt
first
do we
match
want to
tonight,
put
actually.
Chris
They're having
under?
a match tonight, so
That was a joke,
maybe-
but there's not a whole lot left for her. Maybe you finally wake up Jamie Hayter and get her involved again, but
Or Camille, you know, crazy thought there.
well, that's not going to happen. That's
What's she doing these days?
she's hanging
Has
out
she
with
been
Ray
like
Phoenix.
radio silent? Oh, Lord. What a sad story there.
Mm.
I mean, it was the Harley Cameron show. You know what I mean? This whole feud was Harley putting it on her back, and it was them saying, "Hey, we're gonna give you this shot. Try and hit the ball." She hit the ball, knocked it out of the park, caught it herself before she got to home plate. She's gonna be a huge star. She is the star of the future for the AEW Women's Division, and rightfully so. She's wildly entertaining, and she should be the one to beat Mercedes for the TBS title when that does happen. So
We'll see if that's the
I
case.
disagree with you.
Next up in the Brisbane Brawl, finished in just under 15 minutes, the Death Riders of Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli defeated Jay White and Cope.
ugh.
I'm not entirely surprised.
I mean, I'm not either.
Even though-
Well, I'm surprised that Cope took a loss. Fucking
Oh, just so we can take a win later.
doesn't
you know
take
how
a
it goes.
loss ever.
I mean, that's
Hashtag
fair. Yeah, he actually
should have beat him.
it
So-
took several attacks with weapons, and the AEW quote unquote world champion finally put him down once.
This faction and this iteration of it, like obviously it kind of existed as the Blackpool Combat Club before, but this faction started up on, so I get the exact date here, August 25th. of last year. And since August 25th of last year, which has been, we're basically looking at about 6 months by now, just about almost 6 months. It'll be 6 months this weekend. They've held 2 sets of titles hostage, one of which never gets defended and the other you never see. And they just don't seem to lose. So what are we doing here? we talked about the Death Riders pretty negatively over these last 6 months. And again, like, what are we doing here that they needed to win this match?
I don't disagree. It really was just pointless.
I mean, it's weird enough having the AEW World Champion in a tag match to begin with on a show in a continent in a country that you barely visit. So depriving them of that, a world title defense in the beginning is odd. And I'm pretty positive, knowing how pro wrestling booking goes, and especially with the folks involved and where they come from in its history. I feel like Cope taking a loss here could very well indicate Cope winning something somewhere in the near future. I
God.
hope that I'm 100% wrong.
Brandon, I'm going to stop you for a second. Why would you put that out in the fucking world?
Listen, if you didn't hear it from me, you would have fucking started rating it on Twitter, or you'd probably see it on Dynamite tonight.
It's a direction you can fuck.
Wow, we both
are equally true.
It's a direction you can fuck.
Both are equally true.
It's a direction you can fuck.
No,
3 times.
But they could have just run it as a singles match in that case, right? You could have had Moxley versus Jay White for the title.
Let's just be happy that Jay didn't fucking take the pin.
He got
is that what you have to be happy about in this match?
He got to sit back in the corner, helplessly being choked by Wheeler Yuta, of all fucking people.
Yeah, that sounds like great silver lining right there.
He wasn't the one who lost the match. You know what I mean? He wasn't the one who was the loser in the match. He just was on the losing team. There is a difference.
It's fine. Like I said, I've been of the
not an L that Jay needed.
Cope is going to be the one to win the title too, and you can hit that off as the direction you can fuck button all you want. But as long as Christian has that contract, like, what other alternative?
Frankly, I've been.
Go ahead.
No, I've been starting to forget about that contract. I feel like, we talk about, the AEW World Title, the belt being off of TV, and kind of creating this lack of interest for the championship and all its affairs. I feel like it's kind of rubbed off on Christian's contract as well. There was a lot of intrigue on that, and you look at All In England, and if he was going to use it then, and I don't know how many times he's teased using it since.
Not many.
I've been following the weekly as
many,
hard,
but multiple. Yeah, he's not on Austin Theory Money in the Bank levels yet, but
okay.
Well, nobody wants to be on that level anyway.
That's very fair. He's not getting owned by the Death Riders. Would be the equivalent to Austin Theory getting owned by the Bloodline. People yelling, "Who's your daddy?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was rough.
But
those are dark times.
Let's talk about. Is it the main event after this?
No, it is not the main event. The next thing we want to talk about is the next match that happened in a definitely normally sized ring, and that was Kazuchika Okada successfully defending his AEW Continental Championship by defeating an unfortunately injured Buddy Matthews.
Yeah, let's hope Buddy's okay, but you didn't fact check me, but I saw that he's the first person to kick out of the Rainmaker in AEW.
It's possible. I mean, it's not like Okada wrestles all that often.
Yeah, as much flack as I give the Continental Championship, at least Okada makes it feel big because he is an attraction.
He is Okada, yes.
Okada. So,
yep. At the end of the day, you get an Okada match no matter what. Also, I just want to say too, Buddy Matthews brought it in this fucking, in spite of having his ankle tweaked on that fucking mat that he jumped on before the match even started. Like, how many moves did this man hit? Uh, she was hitting like curb stomps and jackhammers and meteoras. Got Rhea's prison lock in there. She was apparently at the show too, by the way. I guess there was a sighting of her out in that region.
I mean, that makes sense.
And she made it that way, and good for her. Good for AEW for not, jeopardizing her fucking career and putting her on screen, being petty like some people used to do back in the day.
Oh, you mean TNA? What they did with Rory McAllister? Literally got him fired?
Specifically, yes. I was going to keep it under, in tongue in cheek because,
Here you go, Pierce. Just giving him the opportunity to bring up TNA when he was trying to avoid doing it.
No, he was not.
I was trying so hard.
No, you were not. Do not sit there and be fucking coy. You want to bring up TNA every 10 minutes.
I didn't say TNA. How many times have you said TNA thus far? How many times have I? Well, I don't need to speak about it because I don't want to speak negatively on that company on this podcast. So
every company has bad things about it.
Yes, that's true. Every company has good things.
Is included.
Yes.
I am just glad that AEW did not go down that route, even though it would have been very easy for them to do so, considering their situation right now. Because WWE has been dunking on their asses, and we'll talk about that later too. But man, all things considered, though, Buddy did make this a great match to watch, though. Buddy, you can always count on to show out and keep pace with whoever he's in the ring with. And Okada is no exception.
And Okada is fucking Okada.
Right.
You get all the one of the most underrated hands in wrestling in Buddy Matthews. You get Kazuchika Okada giving a shit. You're going to have a great match. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
That leads us to the main event, which is the main event that it should have been. And that was for the AEW Women's World Championship. And Timeless Toni Storm is your new, again, AEW Women's World Champion by defeating Mariah May in 15 minutes.
Take a bow, ladies. A well-deserved main event. I do want to say I've been seeing people hate on the finish. Clearly, you are not up to snuff with Toni Storm, with her acting as a newbie coming into AEW. She was trying to perfect the small package. That's how she even got the match in the first place, was by a small package. She won multiple matches with a small package. And she got hit with like a Mayday on the floor, 2 or 3 Storm Zeros. So this was literally her last ditch effort after Mariah went for another Mayday, and she snuck out and got a small package win. It wasn't her just hulking up and hitting the leg drop for the 1, 2, 3 brother after taking everything possible and just no-selling it. She sold her ass off and won with a move that in character she was perfecting. So it makes sense to me.
So when you put it like that, Pierce, I guess. But to hit each other as hard as they did, and for Toni Storm to hit 2, 3 Storm Zeros, and then all of a sudden we get a roll up win out of it. The story makes perfect sense, and like if she was still particularly like attached to that rookie character, I guess, and if she was attached to that, what do you want to call it? That lore. Then I guess we'll roll with it. But like this is fully timeless now. Like if we wanted to attempt the roll up and get a near fall, I would have been like, okay, sure, I get it. It ties in. But to get the win like that I don't know.
But again, it's better than her hulking up and hitting, a Storm Zero and just, pinning her with a foot on the chest. In storyline, in character, this was a good way to end this match. Because at the end of the match, she was getting her ass kicked. So she got a lucky pin and caught Mariah off guard. And that makes sense to me. And it also makes sense for Mariah May's character to have gotten a little cocky. You know what I mean?
Fair. Well, and it keeps Mariah strong in a sense too, which is the
Yeah.
thing that I was afraid of. Because Mariah May could easily, like, especially if she doesn't rebound well starting tonight or even next week, my fear is that she could definitely fall off, especially considering how tightly woven her character arc is in with Tony Storm. So if Tony's not on the map for her anymore, then what does she do?
Right.
You know?
Also, shout out to that Australia crowd. They were loud as hell. And starting a "Rip Your Tits Off" chant is just fucking hysterical. So thank you for that.
Those international crowds, man, they're always hotter.
Yeah.
They always know just what to say. And we can never keep trend, and it's frustrating.
Yep.
Can't even do a "Hey Bailey" chant at WrestleMania of all places. Can you fucking believe it?
Hey, there was
kinda-
one going. It went on for a long time, but
It was like an eighth of the stadium, though. So, like, maybe you caught it on camera for a couple seconds.
I'd have to
But-
rewatch that match. I mean that match is worth a rewatch. It was probably the best like pure match at Mania that weekend.
Mhm.
But overall thoughts on the show, boys?
It was fine. It was an above average collision.
Yeah.
Wow.
The AEW has been having a string of some very good shows lately, so hopefully they can keep that up with their TV going into Revolution. I'd give this a 7 out of 10. Congrats to everybody who won, and Timeless Tony is
Oh, I'm
one
not
of the greatest.
congratulating the Death Riders.
Yeah, and their stupid ass T-shirt.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
Oh,
Literally a white T-shirt that says "Property of the Death Riders" in really small font in the corner.
something you totally couldn't replicate with Sharpie
Yep.
or like some very cheap print on a standard
Yep.
white T-shirt. You probably enjoy a lot more.
I'd take the white tee over that thing.
Suckers are born every minute, boys. And I'm sure there's already been a few relatively happy customers that have gone online and purchased said T-shirts.
Excuse me, I'm coughing. Cough, cough. SRS, cough, cough.
He
Oh
bought
God,
one?
did he buy one? He didn't show it off, did he?
He said he bought one.
What a mark.
Oh God, what a mark. Do we have the same thought?
Yeah, what a mark. To the surprise of nobody.
Respectfully, SRS, come on the show if you like.
I will not host him on this show.
Don't come on the show then.
Well, respectfully to Donnie, I will put in a request if we ever get the availability for a "What a Mark" button from the esteemed Raven, if that's ever in the wheelhouse.
That might be doable. I'm probably gonna, as we get a couple more buttons in, we probably have to phase out a couple buttons that we don't use as often. So I don't see why that can't be an option.
Yeah, sacrifices I'm willing to make.
Look, I know we don't use it a lot.
Big meaty man slapping meat.
But I think that one has to stay forever. If I can make a request.
Oh.
It does have its places.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's one that stays forever, and that's the "On This Day" intro one. The rest can technically
Yeah, that makes sense.
all go otherwise if needed, but
Metalingus should stay forever. I would agree with that.
yes.
Because it is a banger.
You know what else was a banger, though? Vengeance Day. That was a banger. Vengeance Day came from the Care First Arena in Washington, D.C., also on Saturday night. This was a hell of a show. It was 6 matches. Kicked off with Stephanie Vaquer defeating Fallon Henley and becoming the new NXT Women's North American Champion in 15 minutes.
Hell yeah.
Stephanie's good.
Who did not see that coming, though? Really?
I don't know if that's necessarily the point there. Like, yeah, you're right. It was relatively predictable, but she's so good. Like, is that a bad thing?
I mean, objectively, categorically, no. I mean, would I have liked to see more out of a 111-day Fallon Henley run besides one title defense against Tatum Paxley? Probably. But right, this is the state of the division now. Like we've getting all these new people in, and we've got people moving out and moving up. So, you're bound to see, especially in the cases of Vicaire and Julia, and then I guess a lesser case Zarya, which I mean, she's got a good thing with Sol Ruka going on now, but
Yeah, that
and Jordan
Franken
Grace
team is
now.
quite fun. That Franken team is quite fun right now.
I mean, you have all these new women coming in, and right, it creates competition. And I'm not going to sit here and say Fallon Henley's as good as Stephanie Vicaire in the ring. She's good, but she's not Stephanie Vicaire.
Nope.
That
Let's
being
be
said,
honest.
too,
Stephanie Vicaire and Julia are made in the ring. They're already the best they can be in the ring. Maybe they need to polish some stuff up, but they're in NXT instead of the main roster to build characters and to get used to the WWE style of things.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not arguing that at all. I guess like my whole thing was like, particularly Fallon Henley being, given her story in NXT and where she's come from, and what she's done to improve in the ring and stuff. Like I still kind of had a soft spot for her in that match, but again, when you're putting her up against Stephanie Vicaire, like you kind of know what you're gonna get by the end of it. So, would I have liked to see more from a Fallon Henley title reign? Yes, but she was plotted against Stephanie, and we're up on the road to now Stand and Deliver, which I'm of the firm opinion that now that Vicaire is within. Well, Vicaire is holding the NXT Women's North American Championship. I feel like we're going to get a repeat of what was it, a Vengeance Day when it was Keith Lee versus was it Adam Cole who was the champion at that time?
It was Adam Cole.
That was just a takeover.
That was at what's that?
It was a takeover.
It was a takeover.
Yeah.
What was the subtitle for it? I'm trying to remember.
Probably takeover 22.
Oh, it was just one of those numeric takeovers. But in any case, I mean, I see a championship unification match coming on. Perhaps even a replay, sort of a mirror of WrestleMania 35's main event, where you have, the big outsider versus both champions, winner take all. So, obviously Julia and obviously Stephanie Vicaire, as well as the newcomer, Jordan Grace. I see that potentially for Stand and Deliver based on how things have been developing.
Yeah.
So it was actually not a takeover. It was the Great American Bash.
Oh, that was my other guess. But I could certainly see a title for title match in the future. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, what you'd expect from Stephanie Vicaire, though. Pretty good match.
Next up, for the NXT Tag Team Championship, Nathan Frazier and Axiom, aka Fraxium, successfully defended by defeating Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura. For a
Banger.
10-minute match, this match fucking rocked.
Yeah, I mean, it's Fraxium. Just all they do is just have bangers. That's all they do.
It's not even that they have bangers. They just like bring out the best of like every single opponent that they have, right? Like I think back to one of my favorite matches I saw with them was at Heatwave against Chase U and Andre Chase and the Duke Hudson were not, neither of them were known to be super awesome wrestlers, and that match fucked. And same thing here, like Inamura, don't really know too much about him, came from Noah, whatever, but Josh Briggs has never, ever, ever been known to have good, even arguably fine matches in NXT. And he looked great. Like, Fraxium just brings out the best in these guys consistently. They had one with North Dakota Catch Crew a couple months ago that was like great. They just, OTM, they had a good match with them. Like, just consistently put on very good matches against anybody.
And their performance, their work rate demands the best out of whoever they're facing. And they carry, in spite of how they've come to be as a tag team to get to where they are now, their differences, their miscalculations, their miscommunications, they have really carried the tag division with pride in NXT. And you wouldn't think it. Like, I figured they had a much longer reign than they've had, but cumulatively, they probably only held the tag titles for what, like maybe 300 days out of both of their reigns? Even less than that, maybe? Because this reign, I think, only is like 118 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me see if I can get you an answer for that question. As you
I think I got it. That's right.
They're at 297.
Right. So out of 2 reigns, they're just barely eclipsing 300 days as tag champs.
They're slowly becoming one of the greatest tag teams in NXT history. There's a lot of tag teams that they have to, get above for that, but they're in the argument for best tag teams in NXT history.
And to your point, like you said, Don, like they bring the best out of each tag team that they face. And it's a weird kind of a paradox, right? Because it's not like there's a ton of great tag teams in NXT right now, so it's hard to, in my mind, say that they are in fact like one of the greatest NXT tag teams ever based on that metric. But even though there's not like a ton of great quality tag teams in NXT right now, there's still some good tag teams, and they have great matches, or have the potential to have great matches when they're in the ring with Axiom and Nathan Frazier. And
I think it's really indicative that a great tag team has great tag team matches against anybody, not just other good tag team matches, right? Or other tag teams.
Right.
And that's the kind of like praise that I wanted to give to them out of the gate, was like you're literally fighting basically the whole performance center, and not many of these guys are super experienced, and none of these matches are bad. None of these matches are bad at all. So
they are very much like a modern day London and Kendrick. Like that's the closest tag team that I could probably equate them to.
I think that's a good analogy, actually. That's a good comparison.
Small, fast dudes that just go out and hit it at 100 miles to begin with and never slow down. Until
I
the
would
end
never.
of that.
So.
Yeah.
Because there was some post-match shenanigans, boys.
Yes. The still unnamed, I believe, faction that has been teased during NXT for the last month or so.
Shield Tribution.
Say that again.
Shield Tribution.
Great. Yes, because
they're half Shield, half Retribution at this point.
Yeah. It kind of seems like that.
But unlike Retribution, they're actually doing something to affect shows. They're not just kind of stopping and, hitting the ring with sledgehammers and throwing bricks through windows, and then another person throws a brick through the hole that the first brick made,
And nobody's named Slapjack as far as we know.
Oh.
As far as we know.
But,
we may be surprised yet.
Yeah, these 4 guys attacked both teams post-match. That would not be the last of them, but we'll cover that in a bit. The next match, though, was the strap match between Trick Williams and Eddie Thorpe. And as I would like to take credit saying he definitely needed this win more, Eddie Thorpe defeated Trick Williams in 11 minutes in this strap match.
I concur with you there on that one, Don.
He needed the win, and he got the win. It was a solid match.
Yeah, Trick came hot out the gate. Took him a little bit to even get the straps on those 2 guys because they were just busy beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, so this was more like a 14-minute match, but they didn't technically start it until after both had done some amount of damage to each other without the strap.
I'm just glad that Eddie Thorpe is getting this opportunity to show out. I think this is one of Trick's last rivalries, expeditions, if you will, before he gets called up to the main roster. So for him, in my mind, to put over Eddie Thorpe like he's doing is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think-
agree.
It seems
I
like
think
it's
it
not
shows
over.
that-
It seems like it's not over though, because on NXT they did have a promo with Trick continuing to call out Eddie Thorpe. So
Hey, fine by me. Build it up.
I was seeing some discourse online started by, he who will not be named. I'm sure you guys can guess who fucking started it.
I think I might have seen what you're
I
referring
think
to.
I saw what you're referring to as well.
The way to build care for people is to have them beat your favorites and to have them show what they're about. It's the fucking dumbest idea I've ever seen. Oh, why would he win? I don't care about him. It's to build that fucking care, you moron.
Yeah, it's I'm going to call it out. JD from New York had a pretty negative comment about Eddie Thorpe, saying, "Why is he on TV? Why do I care?"
Surprising that JD from New York had a negative comment.
Yeah, I know, big shock. Which Eddie Thorpe called out. The way he called it out maybe wasn't the most fair, but I don't necessarily blame him either. Eddie Thorpe basically said, typical JD not understanding anything about an indigenous character. But regardless, yeah, you build care for these people by giving them wins, and you can't get wins for them without putting them on TV. Like, you can't just win on Level Up or soon to be Evolve or
Eddie Thorpe was
here
on
or there
NXT
on
for
NXT.
3 years. And this was his first PLE takeover, whatever you want to call it, match. And he was against the biggest star NXT currently has, and he won.
Yeah, he was on the road to being elevated, as we talked about last week, when he won the underground match over Dijak, but got injured in that match, which kind of set him back a bit, unfortunately. Scott, not too dissimilar to what happened with Ope-Eh when he started off hot and got injured. So it takes time to, especially at a developmental level, to build somebody that has no prior work. Like, it's not like a Ricky Saints that you can just kind of elevate right away because you know who he is, even if his name is a little bit different.
It's a little different, but it's close enough to who cares. And Ricky's going to be the biggest star in NXT.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, it's not like a Ricky or a Julia or a Stephanie or whoever. Like, Eddie Thorpe
or Jordan Grace
or Jordan Grace. Perfect. There's many examples where it warrants the immediate push, but Eddie Thorpe's not one of the people with that luxury, right? So you have to get him into feuds, build them organically, get your wins where you can, and like, to hate on the fact that he wanted a PLE is just completely unnecessary. But
and in your little speech right there, Donnie, fine speech. There's one operative word: developmental.
yeah,
This is a developmental brand. This isn't black and gold NXT where it was the best show in wrestling that was competing against Raw and SmackDown and being consecutively better, even if it was quote unquote developmental, because everybody on there was an established star already. I would say you have 60% established stars on NXT at this point, and 40% people who are just starting out, are just getting their feet under them and learning the business. This isn't fucking OVW where everybody is developmental. But you have to build people in a smart way, and having Eddie Thorpe beat Trick is probably your best option for Eddie Thorpe.
NXT is a variety show, right? Like, I've talked about this consistently, where it's they try out different things. They almost every single talent that you see going into NXT, they do both the face and heel work during their tenure there, so that you can get a better gauge of what they're capable of should you want to elevate them to the main roster, right? That's the whole developmental aspect. You see them as a face, you see them as a heel. Some people work better as a face, some people work better as a heel. They need to get that practice and to get those matches in those characters to be able to figure out what works and what doesn't. So
Exactly.
JD, shut the hell up.
yeah, shout out Eddie Thorpe. Keep doing what you're doing. I wouldn't be surprised if they run it back at Roadblock with Trick going over so that we get the Trick versus Oba match at Stand and Deliver. But we'll see.
And I just wanted to throw in too with Eddie Thorpe in particular too. Like he came up from New Japan's dojo, so it's not just that he's like fresh behind the ears and stuff. Like he's started out learning one system, which is I feel like diametrically opposed, especially at the time, to what you'd find in NXT and its system. So you're starting out with that. You have that company tout you up as its future, and then you get this opportunity, and now you're learning a brand new system where it's pro wrestling now going into sports entertainment effectively, right? So, right, like he's doing the damn thing, and I look forward to his 2025. I think he's going to have a really big year.
Yeah, I agree.
That leads us to the next match of Ethan Page and Javon Evans. And Ethan Page defeated Javon Evans in 12 minutes.
Finish for this was dope. Javon got a little overzealous.
Knocked the mouth guard straight out of his mouth.
And then got hit with not a twist of fate, but a twisted grin. Which is technically the twist
of fate.
Because Ethan Page stole it when he won Matt Hardy's contract in that weird AEW feud.
Who would have thought, though, Ethan Page capitalizing on an emotional opponent? Who would have thought Javon Evans being bouncy in spite of his own safety, right?
It's just proper storytelling as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, proper storytelling. Mm-hmm. Ethan Page is one of the best in the world when it comes to storytelling in matches. Like I've said 100 times, and I'll continue to say, the dude will be a huge deal once he hits the main roster. Yeah, I mean, and Javon he's probably not going to be on the main roster for a while, but it'll just continue to let him grow. And he worked a story-based match versus, a spot fest. So, it's good growth for him.
I mean, they definitely are trying to invest in him. They definitely see a future with Javon.
As they should.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he doesn't even have to. I'm sure he'll win the NXT championship, but he's one of those guys too who he might not even need to win the championship. He could be like a Ricochet. I don't want to curse him or nothing like that, but he could be a Ricochet type where just the appeal of his matches alone are enough to grant him main roster appeal and get him there. He's great with the Gen Zers and Alpha, I'm sure, where it's just doing his bouncy shit, and that's enough to sell merch. That's enough to put on a t-shirt. That's enough to put their asses in seats. So, I mean, either way, I'm glad that they took this direction in this match, that they're really trying to flesh out character-based stuff with Javon. But, I mean, he's made either way. He's got a long, long future ahead of him.
Yep. Sure does.
Yeah. I agree.
Next up for the NXT Championship in a triple threat match, Ope-Eh defeated the kind of tag team of Grayson Waller and Austin Theory in 13 minutes.
In the most obvious all of the night.
Yeah. I.e., Ope-Eh defeats A-Town Down Under in a handicap match for the NXT Championship.
Yep, that's essentially what it was.
By the Shield Tribulation after the match.
Yes, that also happened.
But, the match was fine. I really care about what happened on NXT with Ope-Eh yesterday.
Just to tie up this match before we get into that real quick, they still have not split up Austin Theory and Grayson Waller.
Oh, well, I'm sure they would save that for an episode of Raw where they were technically drafted to or transferred to or whatever.
Their only appearances on Raw have been between commercial breaks since they've gone to Raw.
Well, hopefully this match will serve as some sort of a fuel to, jettison them into at least a segment, which then they could hopefully build from. But yeah, it doesn't exactly bode well. We shall see, though. There's still lots of TV to be taped between now and Mania. So
Like 9 weeks. It's a long time.
Go
maybe
ahead.
the
Now you
A-Town
can.
Down Under explodes at Mania. We shall see. Anywho, sorry.
It can explode on
Pardon
the
my
Raw
interruption.
after Mania.
Can we talk about what happened on NXT with Oba, please?
Yes,
Please.
you can. Yes,
I have
yes,
a
yes.
button.
That's what I was about to transition to. Yes, go ahead.
I have a button to press right now.
Okay.
Big meaty man slapping meat.
Oba started NXT last night and was confronted by TNA X Division champion. I'm sure Brandon just got very excited for me saying 3 letters. Moose.
Mm-mm.
If you don't know
Moose?
anything about Moose, he's a big meaty man who slaps meat. And he's fucking awesome. Moose.
He's content slapping smaller meat, though, as the X Division champion. Which,
Moose.
I mean, how you put a big, meaty slapping man, slapping little meat as X Division champion up against a man slapping big meat.
Samoa Joe was TNA X Division champion. They've had a lot of meaty men win that championship.
Well, but Joe was flippy, though. Joe had a style that complemented the division. Moose is just a big fucking freight train of a dude. Not very extreme. He's on a track, but you can't stop him once he gets going, though. Hence his name. Moose.
Moose.
Let me look up Moose doing some flips.
Not
I've
that.
seen Moose maybe do like one flip, but I wouldn't say that earns him the right at an X Division
I'm
championship.
looking up for meaty champions.
In the X Division.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe, Abyss, Moose,
Abyss was not flippy at all.
Matt Morgan. No,
Kurt
Abyss
Angle
was
was
anti-flippy.
Matt Morgan.
I'm pretty positive Matt Morgan was also an X Division champion. I could be wrong on that, but I swear he had like a belt collector gig going there at one point too.
Rob Van Dam was, I mean, understandably, he's a lighter weight wrestler, but he was a heavyweight lighter weight wrestler in that sense.
I wouldn't call him meaty. At least not then.
No, but he was a big guy. Lashley.
He was
Lashley's
lean.
Yeah, Lashley's meaty.
Yeah, Lashley's a meat mountain, and he did one good dive in his whole career. Does not mean he needs to be X Division champion.
Low-key was X Division champion in 2017. When the fuck did that happen?
In
Brian
2017.
Cage?
Yeah, I think he came back in like a weird Agent 43 suit or whatever the fuck.
Brian Cage,
yeah.
Willie Mack.
Oh, yes. Well, Cage gets a pass because he's a big flippy fuck.
Josh Alexander.
Okay, we're not listing every single TNA X Division champion here. Jesus Christ. Who's running the show?
Here we go.
Anyway, Moose versus Oba is going to be
I'll bring this to TNA there.
No.
I'll bring this to TNA there this Sunday on YouTube, exclusively on our channel.
Okay, there you go. You can bring it there.
Oba is going to be one of the meatiest matches of all time. Get ready for meat slapping to the nth degree.
All right, moving on now. Main event. Fatal 4-way for the NXT Women's Championship. Julia successfully defended by defeating Bayley, Roxanne Perez, and Cora Jade. Julia pinned Roxanne for the win.
Probably Roxanne's swan song.
I still think she gets a match against Cora Jade when she doesn't win the Elimination Chamber, but
if they do that, Cora, I feel like Cora's got to win it. But yeah, I mean, it was a good match. There were some kind of miscommunication parts to it, but I'm glad women are getting the main event. And
this one definitely warranted it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you have Bayley, who at this point in her career is a WWE legend. You got Julia, who is going to be one of the biggest stars in women's wrestling in the next couple of years. Same with Roxanne and Cora.
I want to make a comment for Cora that she did not look out of place in this match. I don't think. I think she looked totally fine and could keep up relatively well with all 3 other women in this match.
Is this a callback to the commentary that I might have made about Cora Jade when she tagged with Roxanne to
Yes.
face Stephanie Vaquer and Julia in that one match at that one
Yes, it wasn't intentional to that, but
NXT Philly?
I know there's been not just yourself, but some sentiment associated to the peak of her abilities. And I'm not saying she's going to be a ring general by any stretch, but she did not look out of place in that match, I don't think.
I'll agree to that.
No. Cora's going to be a big star, man.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got personality to her. She's definitely turned, and she's had criticism on her personality too, like people calling her a poser when she's coming out with the skateboard and stuff, and she couldn't be original.
I mean, that gimmick was kind of odd, but
yeah, you had, I think you had Gigi calling her out on it or something because she used to be married to Darby, and then she still has a soft spot for him, and he's like an actual skater versus her who just kind of.
Be honest though, NXT 2.0 in general was just odd.
They're just
Well,
trying
they tried
stuff.
it,
We're trying stuff.
It's developmental, don't you know?
They were
Yeah.
trying stuff with a crazy man booking the show when he should not have been booking the developmental show.
Was it him booking the show, or was it Bruce Pritchard booking the show? I'm pretty sure it was Bruce Pritchard booking the show.
If it's Bruce Pritchard booking the show, Vince McMahon is booking the show.
Well,
Vince by proxy.
I don't know if Vince would have cared enough to bother booking it, but agree to disagree.
But Bruce Pritchard is so far up Vince McMahon's ass, he could fucking smell what he had for lunch 3 days ago.
I mean, I could certainly see Pritchard on his own having a hard on for like a Braun Breaker. So it's no surprise to me that Breaker was the standout in 2.0. Not to say he wouldn't have been besides, but especially with Pritchard under.
Well, what about Von Wagner?
Oh God, I forgot about.
Yeah,
I forgot about Von Wagner.
The first Fatal 4-Way to kick off NXT 2.0. Like Braun Breaker didn't really look out of place. I mean, you look at a Braun Breaker promo then, and you look at Braun Breaker promo now; they're very different. But then you got Von Wagner, who was also in the mix, and that one was a little more of a noodle scratcher. But
because of his look and size, Vince McMahon was partially booking that show.
Did Von Wagner have a good look? I never thought he had a good look. I thought he looked kind of like a Neanderthal.
Yeah, he kind of looked like if Edge was auditioning for a Geico commercial or something.
Look at half of the wrestlers that got random pushes. Von looks like if he was in the 90s, he would have had a pay-per-view match against The Undertaker.
Yeah, probably. Dressed as a caveman.
Well, Nails had matches, Nails had matches against The Undertaker too, and we're not, singing his praises.
Nails had really good matches. He'd do this thing where he'd choke people, and then he would do this other thing where he'd choke people, and he would take people down and then choke them then.
Damn, no way.
He also
wow, now to put it that way.
He also choked Vince McMahon in one of the funniest backstage incidents of all time.
I need to go back and watch this Dark Side episode.
Overall, guys, so again, we're deviating a lot today.
Also, Jordan Grace showed up at the end of the show.
She sure did.
Shout out Jordan Grace. She's fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was not a bad match to close the show. I didn't think it was a bad match to close the show. I didn't think it was a bad show overall. Nothing that's like really knocked my socks off necessarily, but it did its job. Yeah. Yeah, it's another show leading up to WrestleMania season, i.e. Stand and Deliver season, and, the NXT Universe or the NXT Nebula or whatever the fuck they're going by. So I'll call it 7. Solid 7.
I put it at about the same.
Cool. That ends our actual content on matches that happened last week and
reviews.
Yeah, pay-per-views, and
you want to talk about one thing from Raw?
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about one thing from Raw. AJ Styles catching that shirt was one of the fucking coolest things I've ever seen.
Right up there with Roman catching the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
Especially because AJ did not take his fucking eyes off Braun Breaker at all once he threw that shirt.
That's just
He
good
just caught that
reflexes.
perfectly.
It's just
Yeah, I
good.
think AJ balled back in the day.
I'm gonna check out.
Something to that.
But that's all I really had for Raw and NXT this week. So we're gonna go into this, Donnie. I know you usually introduce, but this is kind of something that I brought up for us to do. So
Yeah, go
if you
ahead.
don't mind, I'm gonna steal your thunder.
Go ahead, take it.
With what we know of the WWE Hall of Fame, with the Game, Triple H, and Michelle McCool, who I've seen people say is not worthy of an induction, which is just
Break.
incorrect.
Give me a break.
And Michelle was a wrestler in a Divas era, and she was a damn good wrestler at that.
Yep.
We're gonna
She had
give
to-
a couple of predictions for who will join those two in the 2025 Hall of Fame. We each came up with 3 to 5 ideas of who we think is going to join in the Hall. If we match, we match. If we don't, we don't. But obviously, they do put some odd names in the Hall, and sometimes you just can't guess. I know there was that one dude on Reddit last year who nailed every single induction.
That's inside information though. Like what we had this discussion prior to deciding to do this, and I was like, it is impossible for someone to get everything without knowing everything, because who would guess things like the U.S. Express and Leah Maivia and Muhammad Ali together on the same induction, or
Thunderbolt fucking Patterson. Like, come on now.
And then like going back a little bit more historically, all the random legacy names that were brought in, like it's impossible to be able to name these with absolute like assertion without knowing definitive inside information. So
so we're gonna give our predictions. I have 5. Donnie, I know you kind of were going off the cusp. Brandon, how many did you have written down?
I mean, I got a tag team for sure. I got about 2 women, maybe 2.5, depending, or 1.5, I should say, depending on how one fares out. And then I think I got about 3 men, and I got 1 celebrity.
All right.
Jeez,
let's.
I ain't got.
I think we should start with the tag team, because I think we're universally on the same page with that one.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, I think we agree on a few of these.
Because of inside information, seemingly.
Because they've been
to
announced to have signed a Legends contract. It's time that the greatest WWF tag team of the late 80s and early 90s gets its rightful place in the Hall of Fame. Axe and Smash and Demolition.
Here comes the Axe, and here comes the Smasher, but not the Crusher. Not Crush. He will not be.
Shout out to Bryan Adams. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe they put him in there as well. But Axe and Smash absolutely should be there. 474 days. Nobody broke that for a long time. But it's time for them to get into the Hall. They're one of the greatest tag teams in WWF WWE history, and it's a well overdue induction. So
yeah, not bad for being accused Road Warrior knockoffs. But yeah, both great tag team wrestlers. Might have gone a little overboard there by Schmack talking Bryan Adams there, but he was, kind of a rebuild there. But I mean, when you have the Axe and the Smasher, you're getting great tag team wrestling. Like, they overcame a lot of the comparisons they had, and they had a record that stood until only very recently.
Yeah, the New Day beat it in 2017. And then the Usos then beat it after that.
Yeah, that kind of took me aback a little bit, because I didn't know if and when I was ever going to see Demolition's record get broken, because we've had great tag teams come and go, right, who very well could have done the same. But then all of a sudden we entered the era of record breaking, and now everything's got to break a record, right? Like, we had Honky Tonk Man's record get broken. We damn near had, for whatever you want to call it, Hulk Hogan's record, at least his own personal record, almost get broken at WrestleMania 40 there. If Reigns were to go past Cody. But
And before we get on to the next one, Demolition Decapitation is a dope name for a finisher, and it was a very cool finisher at that.
Yeah, can't argue there.
All right,
they had a badass look too.
That one,
being a couple of gimps.
Sorry, that we got covered basically across the board. So, Pierce, give us your first inductee category if necessary and why.
So I have a male. The reason I believe he needs to go in the Hall is because he's one of the most underrated professional wrestlers of all time. And currently, and for the past, probably closer to 12, 13-ish years, he's been helping the younger generation get better and better. And then he also became one of the greatest authority figures that we've ever seen on TV. It's time for a man who I believe is the most worthy wrestler to not have won a WWE title to get his rightful place in the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm talking about William Regal.
Good pick.
Yeah, I'd say that's solid.
It's a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Can't
not
argue.
be bothered with that one.
He's definitely everything you say he is.
Yeah, William Regal is one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time, one of the most underrated professional wrestlers of all time. He could do comedy, he could do serious, he could cut one hell of a promo. When he became an authority figure in NXT, he was one of the best authority figures we've ever seen. I mean, right now we have two very good ones. Adam Pearce has definitely gotten quite a bit better over the past year. But I mean, as far as general managers go, I think only one person.
Man's man.
He is the man's man.
Such a man.
He's a man.
Such a man.
Such a man.
I think as far as GMs go, he's probably number 2 in my book behind Teddy Long. So let's put him in the Hall, playa.
Cool.
Nice cap on that.
Brandon, who you got? Give us a male on your side.
I'd say, if you're asking me, shame that he had to get a posthumous induction.
Hold on.
Did I hear hold on?
I swear to God, if you say who you said when we were talking about this before the episode, I'm pushing that button.
Let him talk. And then push
just
the button.
giving it.
Wow.
Let him talk.
Okay.
Let him talk and then.
I thought we were allowed to have opinions on here, Pierce.
Well, no, there's one that's not necessarily dead that I would have that opinion towards. But let him finish.
So it's a shame that he is getting this induction, if he were to get the induction this year, posthumously, because he had gone on record shortly before his passing that he did hope to live to see himself get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And when you talk about influential names in the business, men who this guy has been world champion, but I don't feel like he's ever entirely gotten to, because he's somebody who, when I first got into wrestling, 30 fucking years ago now, was one of the guys who immediately captured my eye. And that's something that you want for a wrestler. You want someone to capture the eye and draw you in. And that's part of what he did. Those big blonde flowing locks and the black leather jacket, walking around with his name shooting out fireworks behind him. Some say he was about justice. Others would call him vicious. You might even call him a psycho, but
would you call
one man by one name?
The master of the world?
Master and
ruler. At one point,
yeah,
master and ruler. And it wouldn't be far-fetched to say so about one Sid. That's my pick for the Hall of Fame.
Overdue induction as well.
Yeah, I would be a big fan of Sid Udy, whatever acronym you want to throw on, or not acronym, but word, is that's vicious or justice or psycho Sid. Yeah, he was great. He was scary motherfucker.
And one of the most overdue ever for somebody who really didn't love wrestling as much as other pro wrestlers. He was world champion, and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go play softball, and I respect the hell out of him for it. I will say, with what they did with Bray Wyatt last year, they were thinking about putting him in the Hall, and they said let's give it another year or so his family can grieve before we bring up everything. It's very possible that they push Sid's induction back, but I do hope that he gets inducted very soon.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess with you saying that, I think I'll just chime in and say my first nomination would have been for Bray Wyatt to get posthumously inducted, since you just brought him up. I don't think he's got an accomplished enough resume to necessarily be a headliner, but he is a very strong act.
I would say Bray could be a headliner easily. I mean, and my reasoning for that is because when it comes to character work in wrestling, you have somebody that made 3 unique and captivating characters, and that were all different, and that all drew your attention, and that could cut one hell of a promo, and that at 2 different points in time, he was the hottest thing in wrestling.
I would say, to be devil's advocate here, if you looked at the historical list of headliners, I don't know. There's probably, in my opinion, there's probably 2 wrestlers I would say he could be considered more deserving of as a headliner, but generally not the case.
What 2 would those be?
I would say Ted DiBiase and Edge.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just in my eyes, Bray is probably the most unique presence we've ever seen in wrestling, besides maybe Andre the Giant. But Andre the Giant was unique in a different way.
The Undertaker is kind of like the best wrestling gimmick of all time. So,
right, Bray he had 3, technically 4 with his last run, 4 gimmicks that were unique to themselves and that could captivate an audience just by him acting. He was an actor in that could also wrestler.
Did he do them all in one Royal Rumble like Mick Foley did?
No.
The last great feat he failed to accomplish.
2 Royal Rumbles general. No, he was in 3. He was in 2015 through 2017. I don't think he was in a Rumble after that.
No, they had to protect his character too much from 2020 onwards, and then got let go too, which didn't help. So,
right. I'll hop on that. I also had Bray Wyatt as my next one, but I also wanted to shout out the Wyatt family. I think the Wyatt family as a whole could probably go in as well. One of the coolest factions, and just such a fun group. You had the enigmatic leader in Bray Wyatt. You had 3 heavies that were all unique. And I mean, you got Luke Harper, Mr. Brody Lee, who, like William Regal, you could put in that most underrated wrestler of all time category. And yeah, the Wyatt family was awesome. That's all I really got to say about it.
Yeah, wouldn't have a problem with it going that way either. Brandon?
Yeah. Let's see here. Are we still in the category of men?
I would say,
or are we kind of
let's
shooting in a different direction
until we're good to move on to a separate category?
Okay, so I guess here's one of my other male picks, and it probably is a pretty fairly touted one, albeit more controversial than my last pick. Also another guy who, kind of was a Hogan, if you want to call him an understudy, a Hogan clone, if you will, of the 90s. Also had
Hogan?
success. Well, technically he was his cousin, so I don't know if it counts as a clone per se. Although you probably could clone him from similar genetic material. You probably draw from Horace if you really wanted to. But, I mean, I would say with this guy, looking at him, another big, muscly, blonde man, had some success in WCW. Actually, was also world champion in WCW. Actually, beat Hogan for the title. That being the total package, the narcissist, the man of the '90s, Lex Luger, aboard the Lex Express. Although I feel like is slightly less likely for reason that I'm about to mention, which if I may jump to one of my female picks or one of my tentative female picks, would have been the obvious omission of Miss Elizabeth. But considering the circumstances surrounding the both of them, and out of respect, probably also for her family, because I suspect that's probably also a factor in that, I feel like it's less likely that either Lex or Elizabeth goes in, because that situation was really, it was hairy, it was messed up.
Yeah.
Probably still a lot of bad feeling around it too, I would imagine, in spite of time that's gone by and ways that I'm sure Lex has kind of developed and looked back on it with, I'm sure, a great deal of remorse. But on his own body of work, I would say Lex is definitely a glaring omission in the Hall of Fame that itself warrants a nomination, but again, for various reasons and not exclusive to him, right? Like we've mentioned Redacted, right? Several people who should be in the Hall of Fame, I should say, but it's not in the cards really. So
Lex will get in. I don't know if he'll get in this year specifically, but he will get in. So will Miss Elizabeth. It's just
if one gets in, man. Well, then by that logic, you would think Owen would get in then too, right?
Well, that's different.
I mean,
that's completely different.
Do you think so? Oh, I mean, a little bit, but I mean, when you consider the fact of what happened to Elizabeth,
because Elizabeth passed away with Lex, of course, but like that situation is completely different because Owen passed away in a way that could have been completely avoided because of a lackadaisical. The company killed him versus what happened with Elizabeth. Rest in peace to Miss Elizabeth, by the way.
I guess when I think of like Elizabeth's circumstances, like if say Lex were to go in, I don't ever see Elizabeth going in because Lex is in, because they honored Lex in that way, in spite of depending on who you ask, his role in what happened to Elizabeth. I don't know.
I mean, China was inducted as part of DX. I don't know if that's.
Had she been inducted outrightly though? Did they finally? No. I feel like they did.
She does not have an individual. She does not have an individual, but she was inducted as a member of DX. Despite the history there with connected people that are still with the company, right? So,
sure.
I don't know that that's necessarily true, but
the Miss Elizabeth Lex Luger thing is very, very testy. But I think it's very much both of them will be in at some point. They probably will not be put in the same class.
No, they should not be put in the same class.
That would be in very bad taste. That would be in very bad taste.
Owen Hart is a different story altogether because he died while employed with WWF because they took a cost cut when it came to safety measures.
And his widow is of the way she is.
If one thing she did say is if they made a true Hall of Fame building, not in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
It would be different.
How dare you question the legitimacy
of Saudi Arabia? They don't even have, as she said, quote unquote, a hallway of fame. So
no.
And with Vince being out of the company,
Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
And with Vince being out of the company completely and having no way of coming back to it, that may help that as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think Tony Khan's going to want to give up that feigned goodwill. So
well, it's more plausible now than it was 5 years ago. That's essentially what it is.
I'm going to give one more male. This one's also a bit more of a meme character for a male, but I'm going to go with the Boogeyman. I think the Boogeyman is a character that has been on wrestling television for quite a few years, constantly brought back to interact with uh, people throughout, still gets fans' reactions pretty high. I mean, recently there was one where they
Are
had him
you saying this
feeling
because
his
of that
head.
Jacob Fatu video?
No, but I just thought that he would be someone that they could see as like a random throwaway meme, because we were talking about in our group chat about like someone like Doink or someone like, along those lines, and I figured that
I think if they're doing quote unquote meme characters, there's two that realistically could make it into the Hall of Fame, because the WWE Hall of Fame, people actually kind of do look at it as prestigious, but there are some people in it that don't make any sense. Uh, but if we're talking quote unquote meme characters, I think Hornswoggle has a shot, and I would say Santino has a shot.
okay.
And the WLC match put him over, brother.
That WLC
There's-
match is a hidden gem.
Yeah, I knew that was set to be a classic. That was going to be a cult classic from the bell. Like, that was amazing. And that was really a show of what guys like Hornswoggle could do. I mean, El Torito as well. I got to give him his flowers, right? But they made the most of their position on the card. They made the most of the resources they were given. And I mean, yeah, not to discredit Hornswoggle at all, because he was also, right, a former cruiserweight champion.
The final cruiserweight champion before the belt was retired.
Yeah, the original iteration of the belt there, yeah.
The reason I pick Hornswoggle is because he was somebody that probably was only meant to be in the company for what, like 6 months maybe with Finlay, and then he stayed in the company for 8+ years and was a part of big storylines. Usually when they went off the rails, but
Funny enough, another name that I did think of as I was running through names in my list was Fit Finlay. So
Finlay, if I add an extra name, it would be Finlay. Finlay absolutely fucking deserves it.
Yeah. Yeah, for his role in developing women's wrestling in the company as well, besides his body of work.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so I snuck that one in, but
he loves to fight.
He does love to fight.
Yes. He also got dropped on the back of his head by Sheamus in a said fight too, I believe. Unless that's Jamie Noble that I'm thinking of. Pretty sure Sheamus retired him though. But anywho.
Last male names for you guys. You can list them off as.
I don't have any more. I've got one woman and one celeb left.
Brandon, do you have any more male names?
No, I kind of ran through mine. I would have agreed with you on Bray when you brought him up, but you brought him up and you said what needed to be said. So that's, as far as males go, those are the big ones for me. Obviously, Batista's not getting in this year.
No,
he could. He very much could. It's just, it really depends on his schedule because it's so fucked up.
I don't see Triple H overshadowing him, though, is what I guess I'm trying to say.
I don't think Batista would mind.
No. Batista is one of the most humble professional wrestlers maybe ever.
And he loves Triple H. He loves him.
I'm sure he would also love to be like the headliner of a Hall of Fame class too, to some degree. I mean, I can't believe
he particularly cares. Did you hear? I don't know when this was recorded, but he had an interview I think it was recently, about his retirement match and how he just wanted to be able to make his own match his own way and go off on his terms.
Like a year ago at this point.
Yeah, I saw the clip recently, but like, I don't think he would have any issue being second fiddle to Triple H in that scenario based on when I watched that.
I guess we'll see. I mean, he's definitely, in my opinion, overdue. And then naturally, right, you got to think about guys like Cena going in and Randy Orton and all the ruthless aggression era guys that I grew up watching and are getting old now. And it's making me sad to think about. But, Siri, play Landslide. As I drink my beer. Sorry, continue.
We still don't have The Rock either in the Hall of Fame.
That's true. We don't. No, he will be. There's going to be like 2 or 3 other people in the class with him, but I feel like he's going to get so much of his own feature that it's just going to envelop everything.
Yeah, we're gonna
So
have to hear about the mana for 45 minutes.
yeah, the Mana and the High Chief and the Anawai and all that other type.
Well, do you think he'll show that PowerPoint of the tree again?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sure we've not seen those. He'll have a whole cast made of the thing. It'll just be a big 3D model overarching him and the entire audience. Yeah, no, we've not seen the last of the Bloodline family tree at all,
All
in
right.
the metaphorical or physical sense.
What do we got for women that we want to add in?
I got one of that's probably a glaring omission to many, especially to me. It's another wrestler in a Divas world. It's Victoria.
Solid.
Yeah. Keep going if you have anything else to add to it. But
That's
I agree.
really it. I mean, Victoria is one of the best women's wrestlers maybe of all time. She's one of the most underrated women's wrestlers of all time. She has one of the best finishers in women's wrestling, period. She's just overdue an induction. That's all it is.
From the same era, I'd have to go with Mickey James.
That's what I was
Speaking of wrestlers, I mean, with Nick Aldis being in the company and doing well as he is, I'm sure he's got a few bugs in people's ears about it. And obviously with Mickey James' body of work in the WWE alone, but now when you factor in the TNA partnership and her history with that company, kind of bolsters, and you can speak more to her overall success in the professional wrestling industry. But she definitely made a mark very early on in her pro wrestling career in WWE. Obviously, picking a fight with Trish Stratus, the death thralls of the HLA era, But it won her a title at WrestleMania, so not bad for what I believe was a first-year competitor to that point.
And at that point, the greatest women's match in Mania history.
Which says a lot for both women. But when you factor in, right, that Mickey James, I had no real idea of Mickey James's career prior to WWE. In my mind, she was complete greenhorn, but for her to do what she did in her first year in the company was stellar. And she was definitely a passing of the torch moment. And she definitely took the torch and ran with it. She's been an ambassador for women's wrestling everywhere. She's not been shy about speaking about where she's from and representing her roots, which I think is awesome.
She is also the only LFG judge that is not in the Hall of Fame. If you've watched the debut of WWE LFG, which I did,
have
and
not,
it was actually not bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she is the only judge that is not in the Hall of Fame. So if you
for now,
I could to that point, I could see her very easily being a selection this year because there's some recency bias associated to current work. So
sure.
Yep.
Will they don't usually nominate or induct, sorry, I should say not nominate, but induct multiple women in the same year though. So she would be.
Yeah, I think that'll change soon, but who knows?
I think this could be the year that's different too, honestly. I feel like women in general have been making they've been making huge strides in multiple companies, not just WWE, but like AEW as well. I mean, Jordan Grace was killing it in TNA before she made the jump to WWE. Now Masha Slamovich has been picking up that very, very well, not just TNA, but GCW as well. I feel like this year definitely warrants at least one more woman besides the one inductee. I feel like they could go for 2 this year easily.
What do we got for celebrities?
This one is, I would say it's another glaring omission. It's crazy they have not been inducted yet, but it's WWE's favorite band, Limp Bizkit.
The whole band?
The whole band.
Have they ever done a band? It doesn't sound
Not
familiar to
not
me.
to my
I mean,
knowledge.
if it's not Limp Bizkit, then Fred Durst. But like, it's fucking My Way.
Check out.
Roll
Kid
in.
Rock.
Check
Kid
out my
Rock
melody.
is inducted as a celebrity. Snoop Dogg. So they have musicians, but it's always like
It's single, so it should. I'm saying Limp Bizkit as a whole, but because it's not just Fred Durst, but if not Fred Durst, because the greatest video package of all time, arguably, has the song "My Way." That was the anthem of arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You had the Undertaker coming down to Rollin'. They were WWE's favorite
Fucking
band.
video game.
He was in the
He was
video
in,
game.
he was in Here Comes the Pain, I'm pretty sure.
I think it was Shut Your Mouth.
Or it was Shut Your Mouth, my bad. I didn't have a PlayStation, to be fair, but you are correct.
It's just mind-boggling that these guys have not been put in the Hall. They absolutely deserve it. They're their songs hold near and dear to wrestling fan hearts.
Did you
So
say more than Alter Bridge?
yeah, because Alter Bridge is just known for Edge's theme.
Wow, disrespect to Judgment Day.
And that goes hand in hand, which, by the way, Judgment Day, bring back the other side, for fuck's sake.
Okay. Brandon, who you got?
As far as celebrity inductees to go, and I know we like to use the word glaring omission. I feel like this. I know.
Look,
But
I
hey,
know I said it a few times, but I feel like it's a warranted.
I don't. Hey, I'm agreeing with you. I think there are several instances, including the one that I'm about to state, where it absolutely fits the bill. In this case, I'm thinking Cyndi Lauper should go into the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
And
Yeah,
easily.
that's a good
so
one.
when you consider the early influence of someone like a Cyndi Lauper, someone who was arguably one of the biggest musicians in the world at that time, or at least in the United States, where the WWF was really trying to gain a stronghold with WrestleMania, something that she was a huge part of, something that she went out of her way to promote on MTV with Captain Lou Albano as part of the rock and wrestling movement. Like, you think about it, right? It's kind of like you figure, like, with guys like I Show Speed or Logan Paul, in spite of what you think about them, they have huge outside followings. And it's like someone like that being like, hey, I know all these people, I've got all these connections. What if I introduce you, the WWE, to all these people and potentially expand your audience fivefold? That's effectively what Cyndi Lauper did in the 80s when she brought in the rock and wrestling connection.
There's no rock wrestling without Cyndi Lauper.
Exactly. She is a pivotal figure in that. It was a landmark. It was a landmark theme for pro wrestling in the 80s, and arguably wrestling wouldn't be where it is or what it is without her involvement. So I feel like she's long overdue that recognition. I feel like she should, if we're counting two women, we can count a female wrestler in any one of the two or three that we've mentioned, to be sure. But we'd also be remiss if we didn't include someone like Cyndi Lauper, who I feel like cripes, bush lights, whose contributions to the business cannot go understated.
Yeah,
That's all I got to say about it.
I certainly don't have a better one, so I almost want to just change mine to that one because that was a really good one. But I was going to go with John. I was going to go with Johnny Knoxville.
You don't have no. Oh yeah, fair.
I think Knoxville will get in. I don't know if it'll be this year though.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like I don't know what the criteria is to go in on a specific year, so that's why I think Cyndi Lauper is the best of those options. But yeah, I think Johnny Knoxville can be inducted. He's been on WWE TV multiple times, including a WrestleMania match, and still contributes to Sami Zayn's work when he does his comedy shows. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Also, I did have an extra name pop in my head. We're gonna call this the behind the scenes option. Why the fuck is Jim Johnston not in the Hall of Fame? Put him in. He
Question
deserves
on
it.
everyone's mind, on many a person's mind.
WWE's music. He was the producer for WWE's music for like 40 years. His theme songs that he made are some of the best ever. We would not have any of the Undertaker's themes. You know, Shawn Michaels' "Sexy Boy." I know Cena's "Time Is Now" was mainly him, but I'm pretty sure Jim probably helped with that as well. Batista's original theme,
Voices, DX's theme.
Yeah,
DX's
Undertaker.
theme, "One of a Kind," "No Chance in Hell," "Here Comes the Money." You know, iconic themes, and he got let go unceremoniously from WWE, and then they brought in CFOs, who at some point will get in as well. But Jim is, you know, we've said it once, I'll say it again. He's a glaring omission. He absolutely deserves it, and he should go in this year.
Def Rebel is also a glaring omission. So
Def Rebel is a glaring omission to the door of leaving WWE because they suck.
wow.
Glaring omission to my ass.
Anybody
I
else?
mean, Jim Johnston was like the soundtrack of my childhood, man. That's all I gotta say about him. And like someone who, if you watch his interviews too, like he genuinely cares about the music and how it attaches to the characters. Like you listen to him just, for instance, talking about how he created the Undertaker's theme and how like he's gone through different ideas in his head about what that should sound like. And well, like if the Undertaker's got this character trait, if there's one little trait about their character that's different, he adjusts the music accordingly, which is crazy dedication to put into pro wrestling music.
An entrance theme is your introduction to a character. And usually when the beginning of the theme, you hear something and you get, oh my God, it's this person. You know, you get the bong. You're like, oh my God, it's the Undertaker. The glass shatters.
I like it's a Royal Rumble this year.
Yeah, where we're kind of just like looking at the screen like, who the hell is that? Oh, it's Finn Balor. Which makes me sad because Finn Balor's Catch Your Breath theme is incredible. Or, you know, you have some weird opinions on themes, dude. Everybody listening likes AJ Styles' Def Rebel theme better than his CFO theme.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's just objectively wrong.
I wouldn't call it objectively wrong.
It is objectively wrong.
I think if you ask 100 wrestling fans, you're probably
99.
Very close.
Are you handpicking these wrestling fans by chance, or
first 100 fans that are willing to answer the question that I hold up on a board that isn't you?
99 of the 100 will say CFO. The 1 out of 100 is you, Brandon.
I will believe it when I see it.
And we'll do it at Mania, and you're gonna be like, "Wow, I was completely wrong."
We'll get a big poster board and everything. We'll put the 2 columns up, and we'll knock them out.
The tally, just like the names of the songs, which is better, and then they can tally it.
Yes.
And your soul-crushing
put it to rest.
Will be posterized for all to see.
Anyway,
and I'll just make sure to sneak in an extra flask that day, I guess. I don't.
I think that's all we got.
Say anything about sneaking in a flask.
That's all we got.
Jim Johnston made some of the most iconic themes in wrestling. He came up with the glass shatter. He came up with the Rock's electrifying and his much better, Hollywood theme. Jim Johnston should be in the Hall. Simple as that.
Donnie, this is what's called a Midwestern goodbye.
Oh my goodness, guys! We said this was going to be a short episode, and we're nearing 2 hours. Like this, it has dragged quite a bit through this. So,
all right. I had one final thought that I think we can all agree on. Do we not agree Jim Johnston should be in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, yes. I also had one final beer, and I had to ramble and bring up that point. So,
well, you didn't have to ramble.
That's fair.
But neither did I.
Beer, are we done here, guys? Are we getting ready for next week, which is Elimination Chamber predictions?
Hey, yeah.
Where we
Donnie's time to shine.
Yeah, it will be my time to shine next week. I'm very much looking forward to next weekend.
Yeah, you got a fun weekend, man.
I do.
Mhm.
For
Remember to make a sign for SmackDown.
any listeners that'll be there at Elimination Chamber weekend, I will be around. So come find me, or just look for the guy who's going to be dressed as John Cena sitting in the front row on SmackDown.
Holding a sign for our podcast, hopefully.
I will.
Does this
see
guy
what I
still
can do.
have a red beard? Does he still have a red beard? Or no?
Me? No, I'll get
Yeah,
rid of it.
you.
I'll get rid of it if
Oh.
I'm. I know I can't dress as Cena and have a red beard. That's not going to work.
I
So.
suppose. Yeah, you're right.
And you might also see my partner
Committed to
may
the-
also be dressed as John Cena for the culture.
Mm.
Well, how
For
can
the
we
culture.
see you then?
That's
Yeah,
a
it's
good
hard to
question.
see you when you're, just as John Cena.
Thought
we all knew this
imposters
already.
though, imposters are always visible. It is John Cena himself that you cannot see. So
Fair point.
Mm-hmm.
yes,
That explains why I saw your roommate in that one Machoverse vid there, Pierce.
yep,
That
Yeah,
explains
he did
everything.
make it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Majoverse, come on the pod if you ever want to. You're a good dude.
Yeah.
We'll be in
Machoverse we
touch.
allowed. SRS we do not allow.
JPJ will allow.
Yes, we will allow GP.
Maybe we even allow. Maybe even Conrad 167. Maybe even.
Conrad
Maybe even
Donnie will be
Weezy
at Elimination Chamber. Buy him a beer.
He looks a lot like you, in a way.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So yeah, Elimination Chamber stuff next week. That'll be a real fun weekend, and yeah, that'll cover us for the next couple weeks until then we get really deep into the Mania content. So
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think we should have a Rivals episode coming up too. It's been a while since we did a rivalry, so
Sure.
I think it's been since the Undertaker one. So it's been quite a few months.
Yeah. We can revisit.
But I got nothing else. Donnie, Brandon.
nope.
Not I, says me.
Well, we've stretched this Midwest goodbye for quite a long time, so I'm going to slap my thigh, say, well, I think it's time we hit the old dusty
Come
trail.
on. Jesus Christ.
Donnie's not used to our ways, Pierce.
Oh,
You gotta let me do the full Midwest goodbye.
no.
This is the impression that I'm getting.
Shout out to Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Anyway, thanks for stopping into the Ope-Eh 3-Way. Have a beer on us next time. We'll see you. Have a good night.